Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Stan, and I'm back again to talk about some more Magic the Gathering old school killer decks. But instead of me talking about one deck in specific, I'm talking about the top 10 most dominating old school decks of the tournament scene from back in the day. Now, this is just one top 10. That's going to be covering a lot of stuff from like the mid 90s to about 98. Now, after I get done with this, I'm going to cover another top 10, carrying on from like maybe 97 to 99 or 2000. So just to let you know, the Dark Hatred deck and the Fruity Pebbles deck are not included in this top 10. Those will come later. Now, I also plan on coming back and doing these decks individually to give you more of a in-depth look at how these decks work and why they were so dominating. Alright, starting off at number 10 and working our way up, the Big Beef Land Destruction. Now, this crude, rude, and mean deck had the basic formula of starting out by axing a couple of lands and putting out a huge creature. As for defense, basically, you axe more land and put out an even bigger creature. The dominance of this deck was because back in those days, a lot of people weren't playing white, and a lot of people didn't use various other cards that they thought were too weak. So with this deck, a first turn Juggernaut or a first turn Juzam Jin pretty much spelled doom for your opponent. Coming in at number 9, we got the Prose Bloom deck. Now, you can see a lot of variations of the Prose Bloom deck even today. The Prose Bloom deck was basically one of the first combo decks to completely sweep the tournament scene back in the day, operating using a Cadaverous Bloom and a Prosperity. And it tore down every opponent that got in this way by using a huge life drain. Coming in at number 8, we got the Bizarre Reanimator deck. Now, Reanimator decks, in some way, shape, or form, have always been around. The key to the Bizarre Reanimator deck was that it used the Bizarre Baghdad to get really large creatures into your graveyard quick, fast, and in a hurry. Creatures that would be difficult to hard cast. Coming in at number 7, the Vice Age. One of my favorite decks of all time. It was called the Vice Age because it used the Black Vice, and it had a lot of cards from the Ice Age expansion. This deck tries, and 9 times out of 10, it succeeded in dealing a lot of damage to your opponents early in the duel by using the Black Vice, the Strip Mine, and then finally stomping the yard with them by using their damn Djinns and Orgs. Coming in at number 6, the Rack Balance deck. This was another deck that proved to everybody that the Bizarre of Baghdad does not suck if it's used the right way. This red, white, and green deck exploited the balance as it was a Mind Twist and a Wrath of God and an Armageddon all rolled up into a 2 casting cost card. Combining that with the Bizarre Baghdad and the Rack, it pretty much curb stomped everyone that got in its way. Alright, coming in at number 5, we got the Armageddon deck. This deck was a slow but steady white and green control deck. And the basis was, it started off by building a nice mana supply using elves and Felwar stones. And then you plop out a huge creature like the Urnam Djinns, and then you drop an Armageddon, and then by the time your opponent is able to build his forces back up again, you can repeat the process. And on the side, you can have those Zoran Orbs and Ivory Towers to keep the life flow coming in. Alright, coming in at number 4, we got the Cured 8 Channel Ball deck. A lot of Type 1 decks back in the day could not afford to go without at least 2 of the 5 Moxes. This deck changed that shit. And just like a prize fighter like Floyd Money Mayweather, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, this deck comes on strong early in the game, delivering blow after blow, using Cured Apes, Elvish Archers, Time Walks, and Ancestral Recalls. Coming in at number 3, we got the Titania Balance deck. Another deck that used the balance to its advantage. This deck, as you can guess from the title, revolved around using the balance and a lot of cheap artifacts, and quickly setting up the Howling Mine Relic Barrier combo. When you're able to outdraw your opponent 3 or 4 cards to his 1, it's only a matter of setting up one of the most powerful card combos ever conceived, the Winter Orb Icy Manipulator Lock. Coming in at number 2 is a deck that was designed by Pro Tour player Brian Wasteman. It is probably one of my favorite decks of all time. And until the Necro deck came along, there weren't too many decks out there that could stop this monster. This deck gave the user the ability to counter or destroy anything played against it early in the duel. This masterpiece was simply called the deck. The title implied that, well, this was the deck to play with. And it showed everybody about the power of card advantage. Coming in at number 1 is the Necro deck. Now, there have been several variations of the Necro deck, but all of them had the same kind of key element. It had raw speed. With the help of the Necropotence, you can outdraw your opponent, eventually bringing him to his knees with more creatures than he's able to block. Strip Mines, Hypnotic Specters, Black Knights, Singer Vampires, Isan's Shade, and of course, the all-powerful reset button, the Neverreal Disc. By the time you run low on cards, you can just simply drop the Necro again, filling your hand back up, getting back into business to beating your opponent to death. Alright guys, there you have it. The top 10 most dominating decks of the old school tournament scene. Now like I said, I'm going to go back and I'm going to give you an in-depth breakdown of each and every one of these decks. Alright, I'm Stan. That's all for now.